uh,
Beat the clock.
Jen.
I'm ready. I'm here. I am. Look at me. I'm an adult.
Uh, all right, y'all. We're live. Good evening, everybody. My name is Vicki R. Williams Cullens. I am with Open Door Communications, and welcome to Coffee and Conversation on Know Your Rights. And with us today, before I introduce my guest, I want to acknowledge the Honorable Senator Louise Lucas is in the audience. Thank you. Thank you. Your name is going to be peppered around here because you were absolutely instrumental and courageous in this particular path. So, after I did that very fabulous welcome, I'm going to introduce Niggas a Baby of Columbia Care. Niggas, can you wave to the folks?
Hello. Good evening, everyone.
All right, good evening. And then we have Sheba Williams of No Left Turns. She's doing the queenly wave, and if she would move to the left, you will see the crown. Indy. And there's the crown. We have Jen Michelle Padini of Normal, Executive Director. And their other position would be what, Jen?
I am the executive director of Virginia Normal, the state chapter, and I'm the development director of the national organization for the reform of marijuana laws.
Thank you so much, Jen. I appreciate that. And Rob Hogan Class. Did I do that right?
You did.
That's all that education is Sheba giving me instruction. Hey, well, I'm gonna hold on to that, Rob, because I'm doing the best I can intentionally. And Cassandra Davis Perelliot of Future Focus. Wave to the folk. All right, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. We're going to talk about Know Your Rights. The first thing on the agenda, we're going to bring Niggas on, and we're going to talk about the medical cannabis piece. And she's going to be speaking from her experience as the Vice President of Policy of Columbia Care. Niggas?
Thanks, Vicki, for teaming me up. And good evening, everyone. Really excited to talk about all of the different ways cannabis laws have changed in the Commonwealth recently and the changes we expect to see go into effect this July. But I'll start with the medical cannabis program because it is currently the only legal way to purchase cannabis within the Commonwealth for the moment, while we wait for a more robust adult use scheme to be regulated and established. So the medical cannabis program in Virginia saw a number of great changes in the last 2 years, but a few of the key ones for patients this year is one, employer protections are going into place, which will help protect medical cannabis patients who are not in safety sensitive positions from undue employer consequences due to drug tests for medication that is benefiting their lives and helping them manage an illness. Number two, and one that's extremely exciting is we are going to see whole flower products. Now will have to be regulated by the Board of Pharmacy, and those should come out, we're expecting around September of this year. And that's huge. One, the whole plant is so important for so many patients and the diseases that they're seeking to manage. And oil-based products are still really important for a lot of illnesses, but access to flower is really important on this too. It's also one of the most affordable products we can manufacture. It's usually 30 to 50% more affordable than oil-derived products. And since none of this program is covered by health insurance, making sure that patients can actually afford the medicine that we are now increasing access to is really key. Number three, and really critical for patient participation and registration, doctors, there's no longer a limit on the number of patients a certifier can certify, and that will go into effect after July. And I think it's really important for practitioners. I just had a conversation earlier this week with somebody who said that they were going to stop issuing certifications come July 1 because the legalization of possession was going to change anything. And I was like, no. Like, the medical program is always there. Even when you have legalized adult use and you have access to adult use sales, the medical program will still exist, and it will still need to exist because it's again, if you're a medical patient, you don't pay tax because it's a medicine, and we don't pay taxes on Tylenol, and you won't pay a tax on medical cannabis in Virginia. And given again affordability and that this is medicine, making it as accessible and affordable as possible is really important. It's also one of the only ways to ensure you have employer protections at this point. And it's also critical if so many folks who are purchasing on the adult use side are actually trying to manage a health or wellness problem. And so making sure that folks are having this conversation with their medical providers is a really important piece. And the medical cannabis program helps facilitate access to pharmacists and other trained professionals for folks who are managing complex illnesses. But that's just a few of the changes and the most exciting ones in the medical program that are coming up later this year. We're also looking forward to a number of operational efficiencies that were implemented that will also help us keep driving costs down, while we also go through the process of establishing satellite locations to increase patient access. But for right now, I think it's really important for folks to know that if you want to become a patient, hit up the Virginia Normal website for a list of certifying practitioners and a really, really important how-to guide, because it's not very intuitive or straightforward trying to complete your registration for your medical cannabis card. But thanks to Normal, it's easier to get done than ever before. So I encourage anybody who is seeking cannabis to manage their illness and their health to check into the medical cannabis program and start figuring out ways to engage on that front, because it's the only way to legally purchase and to guarantee certain protections for yourself at this current point in time, while we continue working on the rest of ending prohibition, which the other panelists will have a lot more to say.
Absolutely. So, Nicholas, I'm going to jump in. First of all, I want to thank you so much for the clarity of this. And then I'm going to flip over to Jen, because we're going to talk about what we can do legally. But right now, the only program where you have access to legal cannabis products is the medical program. And she is absolutely right. I myself am a registered medical cannabis patient. I went to Normal's website and I followed all the steps. I made certain that I used a practitioner off of their website. You're seeing all these little signs up. We don't know everyone's background, but I can assure you of this. If you go to Virginia Normal's website, the practitioners are legit and the process and the procedures are legit. Now, Jen, I know you've been doing this and talking about this on your Fabulous Fridays, but bringing it to me on a Wednesday.
Thanks, Vicky.
You're welcome. Let's talk about what is actually legal on July 1 and 1/8.
Yes, let's. So, July 1st of this year, adults 21 and older, it's important, 21 and older, will be able to possess in public up to 1 ounce of marijuana, and will be able to cultivate for personal use, only for personal use. You'll be able to cultivate up to 4 plants per household, not per person, per household, no matter how many people live there. They'll be able to cultivate 4 plants for personal use, and they can do so indoors or outdoors. If it is outdoors, it has to be shielded from public view. This doesn't mean that if your neighbor can see your patio from their living room that you have to shield it. But if your neighbor can stand on the street in front of your house and see in your backyard, then you have to screen it from their view. You have to prevent access to either any marijuana or marijuana products that you possess or plants that you are personally cultivating from access by those under 21. Just as you would, prevent access to beer in your fridge.
Absolutely.
Or Tide Pods in your laundry room.
Exactly. Tide Pods, though.
Well, yeah. Tide
Okay.
Pods
I'm sorry. I was trying to,
marijuana.
I know I was trying to mix that with the alcohol. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Oh
Jen.
no, please don't mix Tide Pods with alcohol.
Yeah, that'll do it.
But day drinking could make doing laundry more fun. I don't know. Listen, there's a lot of things you'll be able to do on July 1st that you can't do today, even if you're a medical cannabis patient. And we make it really easy for you to see exactly what new laws are going to take effect on July 1st On our new legalization tab on the Virginia Normal website, you can get straight to that at vanormal.org/legalization. We also added a frequently asked questions page that tells you what you can do, very briefly, what you can't do, since people call and ask us all day. So remember, on July 1st, possession of up to 1 ounce in public by adults 21 and older will be legal. Personal cultivation of up to 4 plants per household by adults 21 and older will be legal on July 1st. And adult sharing of up to 1 ounce of marijuana between adults 21 and older will be legal in private. Will not be legal to consume cannabis in public. It will not be legal to offer or share cannabis in public. It will not be legal to possess cannabis on school grounds or on a school bus. It will not be legal to consume marijuana in a motor vehicle that is being operated, whether you are the driver or the passenger. It will not be legal to have an open container of marijuana in a car that is being operated.
What about gifting of seeds?
No.
Sale
Well,
of
yeah.
seeds.
Yes and no. So
Okay. Yes
there
part.
will be no retail sales
Okay.
outside of the medical program. And there is an express prohibition on any sort of gifting scheme like what you see in DC.
Right.
Buy a t-shirt, get some cannabis gift. That is 100% illegal today and will still be illegal on July 1st. We already see stores right now that are selling seeds. That's not legal today. It will not be legal on July 1st. It won't be legal for businesses to just give away seeds because that is a type of remuneration. So no exchange of goods or services for any cannabis whatsoever in Virginia outside the medical cannabis program. It will be one day, but as Nigus mentioned, all of those regulations are still being created. The majority of the legalization bill is on reenactment in the 2022 General Assembly session. And the Virginia Cannabis Control Authority is just barely going to get started July 1st of this year. So there won't be any mechanism for legal sales of any sort until next year.
So can you gift clones?
If you are an adult, 21 or older, and you happen to have clones, and another adult that is 21 or older is in a private setting with you, and said clone weighs less than 1 ounce, then that would fit within the law.
So where can I get the 1 ounce of cannabis from?
Great question. Where do people get it now?
Well, I don't know because I don't indulge in that.
You know, the what's happening first is the stopping, or at least a crack at stopping the majority of the harm, and that's
absolutely
low-level interactions that stem from marijuana possession in public. All of the business side, that's coming later.
Okay.
But first, we're going to try real hard to stop arresting people for possessing marijuana for personal use. If you are possessing with intent to distribute, those laws remain in effect until the CCA is stood up and we have new laws in the 4.1 section that will replace those existing possession with intent to distribute laws. Those will stay on the books for some time.
Absolutely. So this is going to segue into Rob and Sheba. I want to talk about the decriminalization of cannabis, the criminalization of cannabis, the expungement, and what happens to me if I was convicted 6 years ago of a possession of cannabis marijuana crime. What happens now? What can be erased? Sheba, Rob, either one of y'all can jump in on that.
So I'm going to kind of segue off of JM and let you all know, because a lot of people are asking, okay, well, if it isn't illegal for retail sales, what do we do? Virginia is basically saying, do it but don't get caught. And when you're talking about Ben asked in the Q&A about household cultivation for private use, they're saying you have to illegally, obtain everything and just not get caught. But what Rob and I have really been working on was the expungement piece and the piece around criminalization of Virginians, young people, and our citizens who have been harmed by prohibition for the past centuries. Expungement was baked into the, for lack of a better word, baked into the marijuana legalization bill. The governor wanted to allocate $25 million to build a system to begin to expunge crimes that have disproportionately impacted Black and Brown individuals. All of the fighting back and forth over all of our special sessions and regular General Assembly session was to try to reduce as much harm to communities who have already been disproportionately impacted by prohibition and the failed war on drugs in the past, few decades. So that's how we came into the conversation. It was mostly about reducing police contact, making sure that individuals who have past convictions were addressed. In my humble opinion, I feel that we still have a whole lot of work to do because a lot of these social equity pieces that the bill was passed on are subject to reenactment, which basically means that to reduce the harm for people who have been harmed, we are still on the fence about what we do, and it'll be addressed next year. For instance, individuals who are incarcerated now with marijuana offenses have to wait until at least 2022 for resentencing hearings. It may be changed further than that, but this is where my piece comes in. The criminalization piece is the most important piece to me, and I'll let Rob jump in with the expungement piece that we have been working on together.
Thank you, Sheba. Rob.
Yeah, the expungement piece is just not as good as we'd hoped. We made a ton of progress on record sealing. The record sealing bill that was passed is just really outstanding. It puts Virginia up near the top of all states of the records that we can clear. The problem that most people see when they look at it is none of it takes effect until 2025.
Right.
So you have all these people out there who are hurting now, who are needing housing, needing employment, needing education, and the barriers are going to be there for another 4 years as the law is currently written. So none of the expungement, none of the record sealing takes effect until July 1st, 2025, and the automatic part, which is going to seal the simple possession convictions and misdemeanor possession with intent to distribute, that's not going to start until October 1st of 2025. So people are just, going to have to wait as it's currently written.
They're going to have to wait as it's currently written. And so, folks, what we're trying to share with you is, yes, there are going to be some elements that will be legal when it comes to cannabis, but everything won't be erased. Is that not correct, Rob? When it comes to folks' records?
So in 2025, we will have convictions and deferral dismissals for misdemeanor possession with intent to distribute and simple possession. Those will become eligible for automatic expungement, which means the state police and the courts exchange records, determine who's eligible, and those records are automatically sealed or expunged. With regard to felony possession with intent to distribute and paraphernalia crimes involving marijuana, those are going to go through a court process. People are still going to have to, in most cases, get a lawyer and petition a court and go to a hearing. And so that's for the felony possession with intent and paraphernalia. But again, none of that starts until 2025, as currently written.
As currently written, the expungement will not start to 2025. Jen, you had put something in the chat and you're using acronyms, and I'm not real good with that. And I'm guessing a whole lot of other folks aren't as well. Could you explain what that acronym means and what exactly, from your perspective, because Rob and Sheba are working on a longer term, more impactful, life changing? I think that would only be the way to say it. Jen, would you explain?
So, right, as Sheba alluded to, expungement is a much bigger issue in Virginia, and one that can't be solved with marijuana legalization, bill or not. But there are some steps that we are able to take now prior to expungement coming online, real expungement coming online, and that's records sealing.
Right.
So we do, last year, Virginia State Police sealed all records related to misdemeanor marijuana possession, simple possession. And this year, VSP will do the same thing with misdemeanor possession with intent to distribute.
Okay.
So it prevents these records largely from being disclosed. There's a whole other issue out there with these third party aggregators of data that then go and sell it.
Right.
Again, that's not something we were solving with legalization, and probably not solving with the expungement bill either. So at least there is one deeper step in the sealings process that can take effect sooner rather than later, and then no later than 2025. You know, as Rob and Sheba said, then the expungement process can begin.
So is that like, and I'm looking at it from the perspective of an employer. So you've got an employer who does a background check. Will that, what y'all are saying about the sealing of the records, will that be in effect come July 1, or is that already in effect now?
Misdemeanor possession is in effect now. Possession with misdemeanor possession with intent to distribute will be in effect July 1, 2021. As far as the remaining items that are automatically eligible for expungement that was passed last year, that won't be until 2025. It can possibly be expedited. The governor has put a amendment in the bills to say if Virginia State Police and CCRE, the people who manage the records, can get this done faster, great, get it done faster, but there's no mandate. And speaking to coders and people who do this work, they're saying that it could potentially take a couple of years. It may not take 4 years, but it will in fact take a few years, because we've never had an expungement system. We've never had an
Absolutely.
expungement system for convictions. We
Yes,
have
ma'am.
always had a petition eligible system for non-convictions. Virginia has always had a system where, and it makes completely no sense to me, that if you go through a court process, you're arrested, you pay a bond, you pay an attorney, you sit in jail for however many days, then you go to trial, you lose all this time from work, you pay fines and fees, and then you're acquitted. Then you then have to go and file a petition and ask the Commonwealth Attorney or District Attorney in your area if you're eligible for an expungement, even though you got acquitted or you
Right.
got a non-conviction.
Right.
That has been the process that has been in place prior to this recent bill that's passed. The governor has put this amendment in to say if they can get the process done faster, they should, but
Right.
there is no urgency to it. For lack of better terms, there is no guarantee that it will be done prior to 2025. We are really at the mercy of Virginia State Police and our court systems getting a better record management system that allows these convictions that are eligible to be expunged automatically and by petition, because we'll still have a petition-based system for more serious offenses,
Right.
to be done in a manner where there's payments that go to court-appointed attorneys, because there's a record sealing fee fund that was put into this compromise bill that happened between Senator Servell and Leader Herring.
Right.
They put in a record sealing fee fund that provides attorneys for people who can't otherwise afford it. There's no longer fingerprinting requirements, because there was very real trauma around people who had been arrested. And if we know anything about the system, we know that if you've been arrested, your fingerprints are kept in a database called APHIS.
Right.
That keeps your fingerprints on file. So you no longer have to go through that step of going to Virginia State Police to get fingerprinted to file for a petition, but you still have to go through the other steps. So we're at a standstill, and we're really at the mercy of the courts to say, let's expedite this process and put in processes where people can apply to get this job, to upgrade this system and different things like that. And if we know anything about our great state, we know that they don't move with any sense of urgency when we're talking about rectifying harms that have been done in the past.
Absolutely. Now we've got some questions. Cassandra, can you start with the medical question first? Because I want to be mindful of Niggis's time. Everybody, is everybody okay with that?
I was just
I believe that Jim Michelle was getting ready to provide an answer, so either she or Niggis or both could actually
jumping in.
hear that. So I have a specific question about the medical program. I am a current Illinois medical patient moving to Virginia this year. Do you know if I specifically need a Virginia driver's license or state ID to become a Virginia patient, or purchase at the dispensary, assuming I can meet the residency verification requirements for the card, although other means? I am a bit hesitant to turn over my Illinois card and driver's licenses. I currently manage my condition with a specific CBD THC ratio flower that I know I currently have to access in Illinois.
So the first answer is you can get a Virginia medical card if you can prove partial residency. So that, I think it's like, a utility bill. It doesn't have to be your driver's license, and you don't have to change your primary state of residency in order to do that. That was a really key reform we were able to get done last year. The other broader piece, though, is one of the reforms that we do desperately need in the medical program is to start establishing reciprocity with other states that have medical programs.
Absolutely.
Tourism is huge in Virginia. We have folks coming from all over the place to the state, and people need to be able to maintain a continuous supply of medicine, especially because you cannot travel across state borders legally with your medical cannabis medicine, because that becomes a federal infraction. But you can get a medical card once you are here, and you can work with a pharmacist to find something that's as close a replacement for whatever product you've been relying on in Illinois here in Virginia. Though we are a younger program than Illinois, so we are still building up to the product diversity and options that Illinois has.
All right. Thank you so much. Jen, did you want to add anything? You good? All right, Cassandra, what next question do we have?
Okay, so we want to go back up to a previous question. And I actually think that the question that we had earlier was already answered, but we'll still put it out there. Will there be any issue with smoking cannabis in your own backyard if for some reason a neighbor wanted to make umbrance despite being legal? I think that Jim Michelle spoke to this earlier, but I'll allow her to piggyback again.
So the short answer is no. You could, however, live in rental housing where that could be an issue.
Right.
Yep. So if it's not your property, then of course you're subject to whatever the property owner enforces, and that could be a different situation than, say, if it's a home that you own and it's on your personal property.
All right.
I'm going to take a moment to piggyback on that real fast, just
Please.
to also point out for the future look. We're talking a lot about the current state, but I think folks should keep in mind that this is all still in progress. This work is still going to be done. And I hope that Virginia will take a stance similar to New York's, where it is now permissible wherever you are legal to smoke a cigarette, you can be consuming cannabis. And I hope we can move cannabis normalization in that direction going forward. With the improvements we've got left to do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Niggas. Anyone else want to chime in on that one?
If I can add,
please.
It's illegal to smoke cigarettes in a lot of rental properties. Mm-hmm. I think Virginia Poverty Law Center and a lot of us who do housing justice work have been trying to address that, but nothing came to fruition in this past session. But we really have to work towards providing protections for renters, because like I know public housing specifically made it illegal to smoke in any of their facilities and within 10 feet of the front door. So if we're going down that same line, it's still illegal for those people to smoke cannabis and tobacco in their homes. So we really have to put some guidelines in place and be mindful of our neighbors and secondhand smoke and how it impacts other people. But the most important thing is the safety of the community and making sure that people who don't want to be indulging or engaging in that aren't impacted. But right now, there are a lot of rental properties that don't allow smoking. So that's something to keep in mind when we're going into like next year's session and things like that.
All right. Thank you so much, Sheba. Rob, did you want to jump in?
I just want to clarify, I think maybe Jen and I may have said a couple of things that seem to contradict with each other. So I think we're on the same page. I just want to clarify that. The state police record. So when we talk about criminal records, there are two sets of records. Okay. There are the state police records, and then there are court records. And I did not see anything that says that any court records will be going away before 2025. And court records are public. Anyone can get those by going on to online case information and just looking somebody up. So right. I want to be clear that the state police records may be gone, but the court records will continue to exist until the record sealing law takes effect in 2025.
I think that most people, I know one of the guests on, she was concerned about the background checks, and I think Sheba addressed that. But I wanted to get a little bit more robust into the employment protections that niggas had kind of put on the table. I wanted to, from y'all's perspective, what we've seen embedded in the law, what's that look like for employers, and how are we going to be able to provide them with guidance on how to navigate this new law? Who would like to take a stab at that first, or should I volunteer somebody? Jen?
I was gonna volunteer you anyways. You beat me to the unmute.
Look, this is a great step that Virginia took, and it's gonna give a lot of patients some type of comfort, but they shouldn't take too much comfort in it because the doors are wide open for employers to still take adverse employment actions. And I think the law in and of itself is painfully clear in that nothing prohibits an employer from saying you cannot possess medical cannabis at our workplace. You cannot consume medical cannabis at our workplace. You cannot come to work impaired from medical cannabis, and if you do any of these things, we can take adverse employment actions.
And I want to jump in on that, and I think we all also need to be mindful of that. I mean, you can't come to work hyped up on Benadryl, or had a couple of vodkas, and decided you're going to drive the bus or work at the shipyard. Well, the shipyard is out because that's federal money. But anyway. We're I had a moment there, Jen. My bad. But let's be mindful. You don't want to be overindulgent in any type of medicine and be at work. But we also wanted to go into some of those elements of the employment protections. Rob, did you want to jump in on that, sir?
That's not
you.
I don't know about that. That's not me.
You learned it.
I'll chime in on that too, to just point out, I think more broadly when we think through employment protections, the real focus needs to be on impairment, regardless of what the cause is. You can have not consumed any drugs, but be completely unfit for work because of sleep deprivation.
Absolutely.
That is also a form of impairment that has nothing to do with what you've consumed. Similarly, and very interestingly, NIH had a study that came out earlier this year with another assessment of how THC impacts driving impairment. And one of the interesting findings they had, besides what the key finding they had, was that it's impossible to set a standard limit of THC impairment because individuals process it so differently. And so much so that they actually had 2 outlier instances in the studies, the groups that they studied, where one person who had a placebo dramatically decreased, like massive impairment after their placebo. And one person who had THC saw like a massive improvement in their driving abilities. And I think that part, especially when we start talking about the medical employee protections, folks with epilepsy, access to medical cannabis helps them manage their illness so that they can become safe to drive. Folks with
Absolutely.
Parkinson's or others, you know, that helps folks cease tremors and is directly related to reducing impairment for very specific, you know, illnesses, and with the right and responsible dosing and medication in consultation with a pharmacist. And so that part, I think, we're very behind, and we need to really be rethinking how we assess impairment in general, because it really doesn't matter what the cause is of the impairment. What matters is you showed up for a safety sensitive position and you were not fit to execute your duties responsibly for whatever reason. And again, it could be sleep deprivation, or you have a bad case of the flu or a stomach bug or any number of things that don't even have anything to do with what you consumed. And the further along we get with technology that is equipped to just assess impairment, the better off we'll be overall in workplace safety, not just as it relates to cannabis.
Niggas, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I was coming from the position of just what you've consumed could cause you to be impaired. But you're absolutely right. Sleep deprivation is huge, but the key word is impairment. Are you impaired? If you're impaired, don't go to work. I mean, okay.
All right,
Cassandra,
yeah, we
do we have
definitely have
any?
some more questions. So let me jump
Please.
in. So our next one says, if household cultivation for private use is legal come July 1, but sale of seeds is illegal until 2024, how are folks expected to grow?
Wait a minute. Jen, don't stop. Not yet. Because you
Do
said
they
you
have to
answer
be
this
blessed?
every
No.
Friday. Jen answers this every single Friday. So you just get to answer it on a Tuesday, Wednesday.
Wednesday,
So,
Wednesday.
all right, go ahead.
Magic. Look, the law does not address how Virginians access cannabis legally for adult use. It simply, at this point in time, addresses that they are able to legally possess it and legally, personally cultivate it. Clearly, based on Virginia's ability to arrest 30,000 people a year for marijuana, Virginians don't have a problem getting cannabis. Virginia has a $1.8 billion illicit cannabis market. So I think people can figure out how they're going to get seeds or marijuana. Just
Well,
saying.
thank you, Jen.
I will say this.
Thank you,
Don't
Sheba.
travel with it in your front seat. Lock it in your trunk or your glove compartment. Pretextual searches became illegal May 1st of this year, and that means that police can no longer use the smell of marijuana to search you as a reason to search, but use your brain. Like, be smart about protecting yourself, because even though we're saying these things are legal, it does not mean that officers won't still use that for people who don't know their rights, who do not initiate their right to, not be searched, who don't get tricked into, hey, if you don't have anything to hide, then it shouldn't be a problem, because that is the difference between who goes to jail and who doesn't.
Mm,
Lock it up for the safety of your children. Lock it up for the
abs-
safety of those who should not have access to it.
absolutely.
Don't ride with it in the front seat, just like you can't ride with a beer or alcohol as an open container. It doesn't have to be in the sealed pack that you purchased it in and not open at all. It has to be out of public view and locked away so that it cannot be accessible and in plain view. And yes, your glove compartment is considered adequate if you have the key. It just can't just be in open display, but be smart about how you transport and travel with it, because we're talking about, if we're using DC as an example, traveling down the 95 corridor, and still being approached by a police officer who knows that this is a thing, but will say, I need to search you because I smell marijuana. So, be very careful about how you, just like before. The difference now is
There's a
legally
law in
you have
place.
a lot more protection, but you still have to protect yourself.
Well, we got a really nice quote. Put your skunk in your trunk. I could not let that go. I just couldn't. That was
I just
perfect.
I just want to echo one thing that Shiva also said, which is out of sight. And just like you, even if you were out somewhere and you drink inside of your car while it was parked somewhere, and then you went out and whatever, had your adventure, and when you were sober and responsible, you might have driven home. If you have an open beer can in the cup holder in the front, that could be used against you. And similarly, especially because a lot of folks who are renters end up smoking in their cars or otherwise consuming in a parked enclosed space, if you are consuming inside of your car when not driving it, you must ensure that all of your content is, nothing is left out. Just like an open beer can, a grinder left out, rolling papers, or even bud, I believe, is still enough. The sight of it is still enough to be cause for a search. And so just because some things are legal does not mean that we don't need to be responsible consumers the same way that we already have to be responsible consumers when it comes to so many other controlled substances out there. So just, the laws have changed, but common sense has not.
Thank you, niggas. I appreciate that. I'm gonna roll into another question.
So we
Cassandra.
have, a couple that are in regard to social equity ownership. And so if someone could speak to that one specific question, I think that we should definitely address. I have a compact nursing license and plan to relocate to Virginia this year. Will there be residency requirements for social equity?
Yes. Okay, who would like to expound upon that? Jen, niggas, Shiva,
I'll take
niggas.
it.
Oh, you've been voluntold, niggas.
I was. It's fine. Fair is fair.
Okay.
So yes, there is going to be a residency requirement. From what I recall, it was you have to have lived 3 of the last 5 years.
Yep.
And social equity specifically also prioritizes what disproportionately impacted areas that are to be determined at the census tract level. So that analysis hasn't come out yet, and we don't know what those jurisdictions are. But I'm actually, while I'm on this, I'm going to respond to another question that came in around how will the Cannabis Control Board members be chosen?
Thank
and I'm
you.
so glad this came up, because when we talk about ways to continue to inform this process, and I mean from every step of this, from the regulation to of the social equity program and the business end to expungements and resentencing and all of those aspects of reform, it's not just the Cannabis Control Board. There is a Health Advisory Board and the Community Reinvestment Board. All 3 of those are going to be appointed. The Cannabis Control Board is actually the hardest one to get onto. There are only 5 members, and it requires very specific, there's 1 slot, I think, for a citizen member, but it also requires very specific, like, law and business and other years
Yeah, it goes
of
into great
expertise.
detail.
Yeah, so the Cannabis Control Board is the smallest one and has the most specific and comprehensive requirements. The Health Advisory Board has a ton of stakeholders: patients, disability advocates, substance abuse counselors, pharmacists. There are tons and tons of opportunities to participate on that one. And so I would definitely, you can go to the Secretary of the Commonwealth's website to look. I'll try to find the link and drop it in the chat here for folks to go to. And then there's the Community Reinvestment Board, which is kind of the middle one of the 3 in terms of number of positions, but also has some really specific slots for, I think, community service board members, people from impacted communities, people who are familiar with small business ownership, I think an HBCU rep in some way. And so there's a lot of great opportunities, and I highly recommend for folks who are interested in finding ways to stay involved, go look at that. If you're the right person to apply, like, complete the application and please throw your hat in the ring, because this is only going to be made better if all of us are part of it. And then I'm going to add that those are going to get appointed, and so is a legislative oversight committee, and all of those meetings start come July. So the moment, like, session was great, but now we've got regulators and legislators who are going to be asking for public comment and who are going to be spewing all types of ideas and things like that. And we got to show up and inform that conversation, because it's going to inform what happens in the 2022 session, which is going to inform if we can actually get some of these changes done.
Absolutely. And who is in office counts. Your vote is critical. If you're not registered, register. If you haven't voted, you need to vote. Every single seat in the House is up in November. Every single one. You've got, right now, you've got the Democratic primary on June 8th. When I tell you your legislators made a difference, they absolutely did. Niggas, can you run those commissions down real quick? And then I'm going to give everyone one last round. Niggas, can you run the commissions down real quick? Oh, you're looking for them.
Sorry, I'm trying to find the link. Yep, there's the Cannabis Control Authority Board.
Okay.
There's the Health Advisory Board, and then there's the Community Reinvestment Board. And so I'm going to find the link and drop it in the chat so we can get the word out about that and where to sign up.
Okay, fantastic. Cassandra, do we have any more questions left?
Yes, we definitely do. That I think so. I own a CBD and hemp store. Will we be able to smoke marijuana inside of it?
Can I just say this all together? Can we say it all together, y'all? No. Can we just say that? No.
Moving to our next one, is there a legal difference between smoking and vaping and renters' rights in VA? So there were a couple of other questions that wanted more of an elaboration on the renters policies, and so if we can maybe elaborate just a little bit.
That's going to be up to the landlord. They're gonna craft those particular policies. They own the building, they own the apartment complex. We definitely know it's a no for public housing. That's definitely a no. But private folks own these homes. They craft the policies as to how or what you can do in their home. I believe Sheba said there are tons of landlords who prohibit smoking of cigarettes, cigars, tobacco, things of that nature. And so again, that's going to be unique to that particular landlord. Someone else, there was another question, Cassandra, about floor plants.
They cannot be in view whether they are flowering or not. So you cannot grow floor plants in an area that is visible from a display, and it also needs to be out of access for anybody under the age of 21. So
you've got to be mindful of your products, of your flowers. And I want to say this again. There's 4 plants. If there's 7 people in your house, there's 4 plants. There's 7 adults in your house, it's 4 plants. If there's 2 adults in your house, it's 4 plants. It's not 4 plants per person. It's 4 plants. 4, not 5th floor, 4. Okay. All right. Any more questions, Cassandra?
Yes, let's address this one. I think it's pretty important. Can you talk about the steps that police departments in Virginia are taking to prepare for July 1st? No more dogs. If the police smell marijuana, these are all questions. If in training, what kind of training are they going to be undergoing?
I am so glad that question was asked, because I was sure going to ask it. So who would like to touch upon that? Jen, thank you.
There's ample funding for law enforcement to come to terms with the new realities of legalization. There's ample funding for drug recognition expert training.
Why does that sound like a pregnant pause?
Like ample funding. It's pregnant with the disgust of multiple members, I think, of our General Assembly, but it's in there. So let's not worry about dogs that are retiring, or the fact that police can't say I smell marijuana to arrest black people anymore. That's very sad for law enforcement, but they got lots of money to get over it. So
exactly, they need to stop focusing.
If I read one more story about dogs retiring, so why'd you spend $30,000 on a dog?
it was a job. Okay.
Also, the dogs have to be retired in part because CBD is also legal. It's not just because we legalized THC containing cannabis. You have smokable hemp, and dogs can't smell the difference between THC and CBD.
Thank you for that, because they can't distinguish it. Just like there's other testing that can't distinguish it either. THC, CBD, hemp, cannabis, they kind of all look alike, but I'm not going to get into that because I only have 9 minutes left. With that being said, Cassandra, do we have another question? If not, I'm going to go around the room and ask y'all to leave a last word or words of wisdom for the folks out here today.
We just have one more before we do that, and I think that any one of you guys can address this. I own a garden store. Can I grow 4 plants there as a display if they never go? If they never go to flower?
No.
No, personal cultivation is only allowed at one's primary residence. If you live in an apartment and they prohibit personal cultivation there, you can't grow it at your mom's house because she said you could. Virginia says only at your primary residence.
And at your primary residence, your plant has to have a tag.
Yes.
With your name and your address. And is it the last 4 of your social?
The plant tag is just that. It just says tag. It doesn't
tag.
It's not a specific type of tag, whatever kind of tag you want. It has to have the owner's name, has to have the owner's driver's license number or the number from their state issued ID, and it has to indicate that it is for personal use. So that's it. If your plant's tiny and you can't put a tag on it, no, put a stick in your pot, put it on the stick, put it on the plant label, put it on your pot. Let's not overthink this. Like the law is pretty easy to follow. Let's keep it that way.
All right. So I'm going to start with Niggas. Do you have any words of wisdom for our audience out here?
I think the first one, this is a huge step forward on a lot of different fronts, but it really just means that the momentum is becoming irreversible. Glenn Youngkin today on CNBC said, well, cannabis legalization is a mess, but I'm going to have to deal with it. And so even the Republican nominee realizes that this is here to stay. But Glenn Youngkin and other folks are not here to help make this an easy and responsible and just transition. And so I just implore folks who are interested in this to follow along and not just to vote. That is absolutely important. But if you are genuinely interested in all aspects of cannabis legalization, any one of them, you need to stay engaged during these regulatory processes. And I know Virginia Normal, No Left Turns, Legal Aid Justice Center, all have strategies and will be engaging in those conversations to fight for an equitable and just transition to adult use. And I encourage you to follow all of them in order to stay informed about the actions to come and the work we have ahead.
Thank you so much for that, Niggas. Sheba.
I want everybody to be mindful that the work is just beginning. We did a ton of work this ongoing session after session after special session after special session to get an expungement bill that would begin the process of protecting people who have been harmed in the past, of rebuilding communities and making sure that social equity was centered. I'm not satisfied, but I'm never satisfied. We'll keep working. On May 22nd, No Left Turns and Legal Aid Justice Center will be doing listening sessions, because what we saw in this past session, and I've always known to be true, is directly impacted people make the difference.
Absolutely.
69,000 people were eligible to have their civil rights restored because I spoke up. And I brought to light the fact that there's a thing as indefinite probation that can disenfranchise people for way longer than what they are sentenced to. We need people who want to see these changes done right to step up and join these boards and commissions, to show up to these listening sessions, to reach out to your legislators, because while Senator Lucas, Senator Evans, Senator Serville, Leader Herring, Our Virginia Black Caucus and all of our legislators worked extremely hard and went to bat for the most important things. It would not have made a difference if we all would not have stepped up and shared our experiences. Niggas, Vicky, JM, all of us, we weren't on boards or commissions, but we showed up every month for work groups and we presented to the JLARC study and we shared. We
Yep.
talked about what we wanted to see and we didn't get everything that we wanted. Expungement, we're still going to work to ensure that more people are eligible for expungement. And we're going to try to expedite this process, like everybody says, because we get people to call every day and say, I need to get this off my record now.
Yep.
4 years is great, but I need to go to work tomorrow.
Yep.
I need to feed my family today. I need to be in school starting today. So our hands aren't tied. We still have work to do. I don't want you can have your collective sigh of relief, but know that the work still continues, and we need the public who is impacted. We don't need it to just be in the hands of legislators who don't understand and don't know and don't go through the being stopped. Because we had a situation where in Richmond there was supposed to be no cash bail, and we know that RVA Community Bail Fund was spending millions to get people out on bail. So if we don't step up and get engaged and get involved, it's not just going to be about recreational use. It is still going to be a mass incarceration situation that we have the power to change. So get with
Be
us,
involved.
be involved. Next Saturday, we will have a listening session, No Left Turns in Legal Aid Justice Center. I think Vicky, Negus, myself, JM, all of us will still be doing these Know Your Rights trainings on a more
Absolutely.
consistent. Rob will also be doing Know Your Rights trainings on a consistent basis because there's so much information that needs to be unpacked and people need to hear it a lot
Absolutely.
to
Absolutely.
protect yourself.
Sheba, thank you so much. Rob, you got some words of wisdom for us, sir?
Let me follow Sheba Williams.
I did you wrong, didn't I?
I'm gonna quote my delegate, Delegate Sally Hudson. I was on a town hall with her earlier this month, and she said, "In the year of our Lord 2021, it should not take 4 years to get this done."
All right,
So
now. I like
when we're
that.
talking about the expungement law, I think there's a lot of people who want to see that date moved up for the reasons Sheba mentioned. The other one I want to point out is, I don't think we've talked about it much, is youth, the way that the law deals with youth. And
Yes.
I think my organization is interested in revisiting status offenses. And I know some other organizations are that as well. So I would like, it came up once during the session that we, well, why don't we just do this the way we do alcohol with respect to kids? And boy, why don't we revisit all of it? Is what I'd like to see.
Wow. Thank you so much. Sheba, can you drop your link for your organization in the chat too? Jen, Michelle, friend.
Vicky, thank you for another super awesome coffee and conversation. I love these. I love anytime I can talk about marijuana specifically with Nigist and Shiva in the same room. That's
I know.
um,
That's our safe space.
I want to echo what my two colleagues said. Number one, elections have consequences. If you don't elect people this November that support the policies you want to see, you're not likely to get them. So it matters who's on your ballot. It matters who's on, other ballots, particularly in areas where seats can change. So pay attention and get involved and support candidates that need support, so that we are not faced with overturning legalization. So this is why it's real difficult to put the genie back in the bottle, and no state has managed to get the toothpaste back in the tube. There's nothing stopping people from trying to make Virginia the one that does, or the one that turns that bus around and goes home. So vote, be smart about who you're voting for, particularly for cannabis policy. We make that real easy on the Virginia Normal website, vanormal.org. And also get involved. It's really easy to be involved in the process at this point. It's only going to become more difficult as retail becomes enacted and people are pushed out of the conversation by big money. And that will happen at some point, but that's not where we are today. So you
And
have
this
a chance to be heard right now.
right now. Cassandra, did you want to add anything right quick?
To be honest with you, I really appreciate Rob, because you know why I started this whole journey with you was because I'm an educator, and it was important to me that we talked about what was happening to students. I've 31 years of seeing the same thing happening over and over, and that's been a huge concern. So I really would like to encourage everyone to get involved, because without the support of what we're doing at this level, our students don't have a voice. And what happens to them. And so they're just waiting for us to enact and to be active, proactive, not reactive, proactive for them. And so it's really important that we get out there and vote, that we put the right people in place to be able to listen to the voices of those of us in the community that want to see change happen, and change happen as quickly as possible.
So thank you so much, Cassandra. I want to thank my guests for being on this evening. You could be anywhere you want to be, but you're here with me tonight. I want to explain, I want to reemphasize, I want to absolutely charge you to be involved. The more you're informed, the more you engage, the more empowered you are to absolutely make a difference in this cannabis space. We are not where we want to be, but we damn sure are a long way from where we were. When I met Jen, we were just talking about just a small group of folks who had gotten some semblance of some legalization to help their children who had epilepsy. That's all we were talking about. We had no fathom of an idea that we would be in this space right now. In what, Jen, 3 years?
Yeah, I think you and I have known each other for 3 years. Really,
Yeah.
this whole process just got started in 2015, and we went from nothing
Yep.
to legalized adult use.
First state in the South.
Pretty quickly. And I feel like we should write a book that's like, if Virginia can, so can you.
Absolutely. I've been thinking about, yes, Virginia, cannabis is a Santa Claus. I don't even know if that makes sense. But yes, there is a Santa Claus. That was a movie. I digress. So I want to thank you so much. Please follow me. Follow Virginia Normal. Follow No Left Turns. Rob, what's your organization?
Legal Aid Justice Center.
Follow Legal Aid Justice Center. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, OPN-Door.com, OPN-Door.com on Twitter. Sheba, No Left Turns on Twitter. Virginia Normal. And Jen has this Friday talk show every Friday. Follow her at 4, not
Rob,
5.
Drop your organization in the chat.
Yes, drop your organization in the chat. I am Vicki R. Williams Cullens. I am the mediator that you want. I'm the conflict coach you need. If you want to be informed, engaged, and empowered, follow me and join me on Open Door Presents Coffee and Conversation. Y'all have a great night. Everybody take it easy and have a great evening. Bye.